morning. This is Susan Matson, Master Gardener, with Angela at Stacy's Nursery this morning, and we are going to talk container gardens, container gardening even. And so we'll look at some choices, first of all, that are already put together, including fairy gardens. And I'm going to turn this over to Angela so that she can tell a little bit about putting together a fairy garden. It is something people can do with their kids, their grandchildren. Most younger children enjoy doing it because you're working with small things, small plants, small items, and you can even do it outside. You know, we've had some success out in the woods doing it at the base of trees. So I'll turn this over to Angela, and she can tell a little bit more about it.
Good morning. Welcome everybody to the greenhouse. I know most of you who watch this program have seen this at Christmas time. We've done that a couple times where I've shown you the nice fun indoor forest that we create. So now you're here at springtime, which is a whole different look, isn't it? It's beautiful. Color, color, color in a nice covered warm atmosphere. It's kind of like a tropical paradise in here. So I invite any of you to stop by. Like she mentioned, we're going to just kind of take a gander through the greenhouse today. We're going to look at Laura's potting out back. I'm going to show you, or she's going to show you kind of how we do all these mixed containers. We create hundreds of mixed containers for businesses around our community and customers as well. A lot of people bring in their pots and just say, have fun, do whatever you want. Some people have more specific sun, shade, color themes, if it's for a graduation or any of those kind of things we can do. So like she mentioned, we're going to touch base a little bit on the fairy gardening here too as well. That's becoming a new fun fad. People are loving it. We have lots of kids who come in and they migrate right to this table. And as you can kind of see, I don't know if you can zoom in, here's kind of an example of a fairy garden. And what they are is they allow children to use their imaginations out in the gardens with moms or grandmas. Most grandmas do them with their grandchildren. That's kind of the popular thing. And you pick your plants. So there's lots of different plants here. You can see little mini evergreens, small coleuses, fuchsias. And then you create a fun little atmosphere for the fairy to live. And you use a lot of fun decor, like little fairy houses, because the fairies have somewhere to go at night to sleep. And fun little fairy chairs. She's holding another tree house. A lot of them open so that the fairies can get in and the kids can kind of peek to make sure the fairy's in there. And then you also want to make sure you have some fairies, of course. So we have fairies that do cartwheels. We have fairies that ride horses. We have fairies that fish. We have all kinds of different fun fairies, and kids just love this. What they really like to do is they like to create their garden, and then maybe they go home, and a couple weeks later they visit grandma or grandpa, and the garden, or the fairy garden, has left fairy dust. So grandma needs to get some fairy dust going. And now the fairy has arrived and visited while they were gone. So that's kind of fun for the kids. Lots of new, fun things to incorporate. Little koi ponds have been really popular. Slides, things that the kids use themselves out on the parks. They want their fairies to have those as well. So it's just kind of been a fun thing for people to do. A couple of the pots right in front of me here are some of the designs that we've done. And these are pre-made, so you can just come into the garden center and just pick them up. You don't have to leave your pot. And people love that instant gratification feel. A lot of these were very popular for Mother's Day and graduations, gifts as well. And then your traditional Memorial Day too. So what we have here, we'll just show you a couple examples. This is a full shade arrangement, and people are always struggling in the shade. They want color in the shade, they want texture in the shade, and most of us think geraniums, petunias, well, they won't grow in the shade. So we need something fun and different. So this is fuchsias, which have been around forever. People love, the old-fashioned fuchsia baskets. They're just fun. As a kid, I remember always popping them and getting that noise. So this kind of shows you a fun shade arrangement. It has the nice fuchsias, the begonias. Begonias have came to a whole new level. There is probably 30 different varieties of begonias now, and we sell tons of different colors. Here's another one she's holding up. That's a Rieger begonia. This down here is a tuberous begonia. Then there's angel wing begonia and baby wing begonia, and there's just tons of varieties. The begonias, for this particular variety, likes the shade, but there's some that grow wonderful in the sun as well. So this has your begonia, your fuchsia, a New Guinea impatient, which are kind of stealing the market too because they are taking over for the impatiens that got all the fungus last year in the gardens. So people are planting New Guineas instead of the regular impatient. And then this is a spider plant. So mixing some house plants in with your arrangements are kind of fun. They add a different, texture. And then what you can do is pop that out of your pot and throw it in your house for the summer, or winter, excuse me. So just kind of a fun way to incorporate a house plant into an arrangement. And you'll notice that too as we walk through, we do a lot of the house plants in arrangements. This is your traditional petunia, but petunias are not just the wave petunias. People come in and want just the wave. There's super petunias, which do a little better job. There's mounding petunias. There's a lot of different petunia varieties out there now. This particular one is a super petunia, and that does really well in the containers. Also window boxes, because it will just drape over. And then adding the fun, big elephant ear. It's kind of a dramatic twist to gardening. I had a lady bring in her pictures from last year, and her elephant ear got like 6 foot high. The leaves are huge. It was just something to talk about all summer at their house. It was kind of fun. So that's the new petunia. And then if you turn this pot to the back, you end up with the little calabrachias, which are kind of new in the garden centers over the last couple years. And they're a mini petunia. And again, those probably come in 30 different color schemes. One new one this year is called Holy Moly, kind of fun name. And then a filler plant in here is called Diamond Frost. And that's become very popular as well, very airy, just kind of something different. So that kind of shows you, a fun mixed arrangement. And then over here, again, with that petunia. So now this is more of a mounding petunia. If you notice, it's a little more compact versus this one being a little more drapey. So this is more of a compact petunia. Again, the super petunias don't have to be deadheaded as much. So that's why people are really liking them. And then this has a fun grass, a little baby tut. Back here, there's big king tuts and baby tuts. That's a variety of that. And then here's another color of the calabrachia. So something different. Calabrachia, yep. Or million bells. The common name is million bells. And then back here is a lotus vine, which is just really kind of fun too and texture-y. You want to really try to have texture in your pots. Your traditional, this look is great and it's still very popular. But this is very traditional geranium spike vinca vine. So let's get out of the box and do something fun and different and add some texture to it and some interesting flowers versus just your kind of traditional. We still sell a ton of these, but what we really recommend this look for is the cemetery, because it's a low maintenance, traditional look, and it does wonderful out there, especially if you can't maintain it a lot. So at Christmas time, I tell you how we hand select our growers of our Christmas trees. At springtime, we hand select the people who grow our flowers. We don't just buy from the same places that everybody else buys. So this particular guy, we've hand selected him, and he specializes in geranium growing. So he grows a geranium with a huge flower head, as you can see, profusely reblooming. And once people have our geraniums from him, they don't want to go anywhere else because they're just beautiful. He has really specialized in growing them out of the box. So what a lot of growers do is they grow them as close together as they can in boxes, and you take them out of the box and all the leaves are burnt around the edges because they've kind of smashed and not had time to, or the room to grow. He grows them all out of the trays. And that's really important when you're buying your product, is to, we really want to pick the best growers with the best things, so we can offer kind of those fun, different things, but also high quality product. So that's a vinca vine. And there's the traditional old vinca vine that we've used forever that's more of a sagey green. This is a new one, more of a limey green. Using the lime greens in the garden centers and the pots are really popular right now. So it's kind of a fun new look. So yeah, maybe we can take a walk through the greenhouse and look at a couple flowers on the way, if that works. Okay, we're zooming in on some of our fun options of annuals here on the benches. As he zooms in, you'll see all those begonias I was talking about. There's lots of different colors, lots of different varieties, and they're one of those plants that does wonderful in the shade, and I know a lot of you struggle with those shade pots. Even towards the end, and you can stop in and take a look yourself, but there's a double begonia, which is really kind of fun as well, called Doublet. So we have lots of different fun begonias here, and lots of different fun vines for your pots. We're going to head over next and look at some of the foliage things. I mentioned using foliage and different textures, so I want to show you some of those before we head back to the potting bench. So here we are looking at all the foliage plants, as you can see. Lots of fun different colors of coleus. Sweet potato vines are the nice vines that go over the front of your pot. Coleus is a huge plant that we use a ton of. Getting that lime green foliage back into your pots, it really brightens them up. And people have kind of a wrong idea of Coleus, thinking they can only do it in the shade. There's full sun Coleus and there's shade Coleus. So you can really utilize that plant in any of your fun pots. They work good in larger pots because some of them can get quite big. So they're just kind of a fun, interesting accent to your pot. What we're going to do next is we're going to head back to the potting bench and visit Laura, who's back there potting away. Okay, now we are back here by the potting bench where Laura is creating some wonderful potted arrangements for people. This is the spot where people bring in their containers and we kind of create a masterpiece back here. What I'd like to kind of first go over is kind of some of the golden rules for potting. If you're doing it yourself at home, I'll show you some of our secret tips. So some people have these ideas that they have to clean out their containers from the previous year, and we say no, you do not. Unless you had some sort of fungus or disease on your plants, I would really just encourage you to leave the pots as is. There's really no need to wash them out. As long as you're starting with good mulch and good dirt, you don't need to dump that dirt out. So what we like to do in a container this size, which a 12-inch pot is kind of an average size, is we fill the bottom half with mulch. Just a natural mulch. We sell it in bags here at the nursery. Don't use a dyed mulch because that can kind of bleed out on your cement or deck. Just a natural wood mulch. And we fill the pot about halfway up with that. So kind of right here where my hand is, we fill that container with the mulch. And what that does is it helps hold a little extra moisture in as the summer goes on into those hot months. And over time it actually, biodegrades into kind of a compost. Now, people bring in their pots that are really heavy and they have pop cans in them or milk jugs. That's fine. You can definitely use those materials to create your pot, lighter weight. But mulch works really well as well and does hold that extra moisture in. So starting with a good mulch, and then the next key is starting with good dirt. I can't stress that out enough. There's a lot of dirt or soil out on the market that really isn't a good product. For instance, for years we sold Miracle-Gro and we all thought it was the greatest soil on the market. It's just so airy and it kind of blows away in the wind and it doesn't hold any moisture. I like to use a soil that holds good moisture. So what we use is Mississippi Top potting soil. It's actually made just in Cold Spring. So it's a nice organic compost potting soil. It already has fertilizer in it. It's dense enough where it can hold some moisture, but lightweight enough where you can lift a bag of it. It's not heavy and too heavy for you. So I really can't stress enough to start with good dirt. That's a really important avenue. So Laura is up here potting, and what we try to do at the nursery when we're creating pots is we try to use a thriller, a spiller, and a filler. So that's kind of your three structures in your pot. And how that goes is this one she just did. And back here she has some height because she's going to put this up against a wall at a house. And this is your thriller. So the fun grass is kind of thrilling and interesting. These would also be your thriller here. They're guara. They kind of dance in the wind. So your eye is kind of attracted to this, thrilling component in the pot. And then down low, in the middle of the pot, you fill it in. So you use a plant that just kind of fills in nicely in the center. And then in the front, you use your spiller, and that spills over your pot. So having those three things in your container really creates a dramatic effect. It's kind of nice. So here we've got the spiller being the petunias and the little bidens here. This is a begonia I was saying earlier that some can take sun or shade. This one is one of those that will do well in both situations. It will bloom a little better in the sun. So that's kind of the finished product. And you can kind of watch how Laura does this. Some of the key tips, again, are to, when you are getting your soil into your pot, you keep it down a little bit so that you can backfill around the plants as you're planting. She's adding a little bit of fertilizer in there. Slow release Osmocote is really nice because it slowly fertilizes throughout the season. So we add just kind of a handful of that. And then you can see how she's breaking up the roots of the pot. So the roots are called a root membrane. And what you need to do is really rip them apart. So you can see how she's not being careful with those plants at all. She's kind of beating them up. What can happen is if you don't break those roots up, they can just keep circling around and kind of kill out your plants. So you want to really be rough with them. Don't think that they're this sensitive little thing. Just kind of beat them up and knock them around. And so she's kind of doing her back. That would be her thriller, is the coleus. And now she's putting in the begonias. And see how she's digging a hole and then backfilling? A lot of people don't. They either dig them too deep or not deep enough. So you want to just kind of dig a hole about the same size as the pot and then backfill with your soil right around there. Kind of see how she's doing that. And then when she gets to the vines kind of go in front, and again, those are the spillers. These are both, fun texture vines, and those kind of just go in the front to fill it out. And then what we like to do is go around the whole arrangement and kind of create a trough around the whole thing. So as you water, that water just goes right into that trough. A lot of people pile all their dirt up, and then they go to water, and it just spills out the side of the pot. If you create that little trough, the water can kind of just sit in there and, get to the roots of those plants. So that is kind of a masterpiece. Now this is a window box, and we were kind of talking a little bit earlier that a lot of people think the moss window boxes hold moisture in, and I would actually disagree with that, maybe giving those moss arrangements a little more water than you would think, because that moss tends to dry out a little fast in our windy springs here. So that's kind of a fun finished product there, and we can sneak over and look at a couple more that Laura's created today. You can see a lot of them are just fun and different. A neat, fun arrangement here in a basket. Some of those new petunias we talked about. This is a really fun lantana. It's a heat-tolerant lantana, likes a lot of sun and heat and low maintenance. And then right here is the succulent gardens, which are really popular this year. They are becoming quite popular. You can either buy them all done up like this, larger plants already established, or we have tiny little mini plants. And you can buy a lot of little mini plugs and plug them into a pot. The nice thing about them is they like little to no maintenance. So they don't like water, they like a lot of heat, low maintenance. People who tend to love their plants to death wouldn't be good with this. We want this to be those people who neglect them, because that plant really wants to be neglected. So that's just some of the fun different annuals that we're doing this year. And now Laura's going to work on over here an herb garden. Herb gardening has become quite popular as well. We carry a large variety of herbs here at the garden center. Today she's doing a old strawberry pot with the little holes in them that I'm sure we're all familiar with, and doing a couple different herbs in there. So some of the ones you can grow in containers are thyme, rosemary, a lot of the basils, and there's quite a few different varieties of basils. Those will do good in containers. The cilantro gets a little bit big, but if you keep kind of plucking at it and utilizing it, it will do great in a container. And then also some mojito mint. You can't go wrong with mojito mint on those nice hot days. Little mojito mint in your drink. And then also some oregano. So just your overall top 5-6 herbs that we carry. We have a lot of different varieties, but those are kind of your most popular. Yeah, Laura's mentioning that a lot of people put them in their vegetable garden. They kind of take over the spot because some of the mints and the oreganos can get quite invasive. So it's kind of nice to do in a smaller pot or a container where you can keep it, at a smaller size, and it'll still produce well, and you keep kind of cutting back at it. But this way it keeps them contained and they don't overtake that garden for you. So this will be a fun little container. Now, what also you could do with this is you could bring this in your house in the winter. A lot of people will overwinter their herbs kind of by a sunny window. It doesn't do well for all people, but some people really do have good luck with it. And maybe not all of them would work, but a lot of times the basil and the oregano would work really well. Maybe over time the rosemary would die out, but it would just be a fun way to carry those herbs right into the house. And then you can see all of our good soil up here too. Keep that in mind. So as she's almost done there, that's just kind of some of the new fun ideas for gardening this year. You can come in and check us out. We've got all kinds of great ideas. We'd love to help you arrange a pot. You can come in and say, I have a 12-inch pot, full sun, what do I do? I have a 13-inch pot, full shade, what do I do? And we'll just give you some nice tips on what to do for that.
Well, Angela and Laura, I am really impressed by your skills here. You just whip it all together, which is a lot easier than doing it at home where you're struggling over your pots. Another thing that works really well where people can see behind us is having a potting bench or an area where you can stand and do your potting if you have a lot of potting to do. And you can make your own by just putting a big board over the top of a trash can or some other kind of structure. And then you can stand and use the potting soil without having to crawl around on the ground. It makes it a lot easier frankly. So, and Laura, I can see some of those herbs could also be planted in your garden when you're through. I did move a couple of mine, the mint and also the chives that I had in pots last year. I put in the garden and they are coming up really nicely. And from the past, there's oregano and some thyme that's still coming up. Thyme works well between stones. If you have flagstones in your garden and you want to plant either the small variety, I think it's an English thyme, that tiny variety looks really nice, or a regular variety. It's a way of putting in some greenery around your stone work that you might have. So I think herbs work really well. We often have questions about them. They do require a lot of sun, usually, and you can kind of watch for water. That's the biggest thing, I think, is making sure that they get the right amount of water in a container. So, Angela, is there anything else you'd like to add? Can you think of anything? We talked a little bit about pests when you were gone, like insect pests that might attack it, or even overwatering or underwatering.
You know, I would honestly say one of the biggest things is overwatering. We don't see a lot of pests on flowers. We were seeing that fungus on the impatiens, but I think that's kind of got it held at bay for now. There's not a lot of insects, but people tend to overwater. So one of the things I should have mentioned earlier is making sure your pots have drainage in them. We'll have a lady, bring her pot back and say it just doesn't do well, and we'll realize there's no drainage, and the plants are they're just drowning in that moisture of the water. So, even if it's a pot that didn't come with holes, grab your drill in 3 or 4 holes in there. Making sure it has good drainage is really important. If it's a pot like an old crock that you really don't want to drill holes in or can't, then pot in something else and set it in that crock. Or at least have maybe 3-4 inches of rocks in the bottom of that crock, and just make sure to not overwater. I understand July is hot and that can get kind of intense and we need to probably water every day. But especially right now, the cooler temps that we're experiencing and the rainy weather, you really don't want to give your plants too much moisture. So yeah, just come in and visit us whenever. We'll be here to answer all your questions.
Well, thanks very much. This will take you through into the summer months, and we appreciate having Laura and Angela help us with these questions, and this is always a good place of reference if you have more questions that we don't answer on the air. We'll see you next month.